There are so many reasons this is so. It might stem from that attachment that existed in the relationship. Most times, it is usually hard to say goodbye to someone who you felt you loved and cherish. Fear of what society and religious beliefs will say might be a big factor that makes people consider going back to a previous relationship or not completing letting go. This is even more prevalent amongst women, especially in an African society. Women who are divorced or separated from their husbands are termed no good, and this makes most of them suffer in silence. However, there are also many reasons why it is hard to move on from a relationship. Some relationships may have broken up on mere trivial issues that could have been sorted easily if both parties were patient enough. It might not take long for one or both parties to miss the relationship and might even want to try and reconcile such a relationship. This is because they got to know that there were more positives than negatives in the relationship. Some only discover how loving and caring their partner was after a breakup, and thus find it hard to be in a relationship with another person. Trying to let go of someone you love is frustrating, emotionally exhausting, and feels at times fruitless. But understanding why it's so hard to let go of someone you love is a great way to start the path of healing. There are so many reasons people find it hard to move on, and we will be looking at a few of them. Number 1. You still love your ex. This is quite obvious, and you may have difficulty moving on, especially if you still have a strong feeling of love for your ex-partner. You have hope that you can reconcile. You may have difficulty moving on if a part of you is holding on to the hope that you will get back together with your ex. It is especially hard to even move on, especially when the relationship ended abruptly. Most times, you might not get to grasp why the relationship ended in the first place, and this makes you ruminate about what went wrong, and this might make you want to get back into that relationship at all cost, clearly because you still love your spouse and you are willing to work things out in the relationship. If your ex feels the same about you, then it is a sign that you both love one another and there is a chance of reconciliation. However, no matter how much you love your spouse, if the relationship was a toxic one and you have done what you felt you could to get your spouse to change, all to no avail, then you must let go of such a relationship. You have to give yourself time to heal. This is time to turn to God. Yes, it is not easy leaving someone you truly love and cherish, but your peace of mind and well-being, both emotionally and physically, matter most. Number 2. Decimated self-esteem. You're finding it hard to move on. Could be a result of your self-esteem, which has been decimated to a level so low that you feel you can't find love or validation except in the sight of your ex. This is especially common for people who had only fallen in love once with just their partner, and hence because it was their first, they had never experienced any form of breakup before. For this reason, they are affected the most whenever a breakup occurs in a relationship, and they find it hard to move on. It is possible you saw a long-term future with this person, and you were really in love with your ex, to the point that you saw a future with such a spouse, and this made you invested in the relationship or marriage. When such a relationship fails, it hits you the most, and you grieve internally, and this could affect your psychological well-being and your self-esteem and identity. You end up wishing and thinking of what could have been because the hopes and dreams you had for the relationship are dashed. This could also distort your focus on moving on and making room for new opportunities. It is even harder moving on when your ex represents a first for you. Breakups are difficult regardless, but it can be particularly difficult to move on when the person represents an important first for you. Number 3. You have not taken time to grieve. Breaking up a relationship should not be viewed like death. Sometimes a breakup is instigated by God Himself because He knows the best for you. Psalm 121 verse 3 says, "He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber." Even though the relationship is not the will of God for your life, breaking feels hard, and this is why you have to let go and take some time to make your heart heal. Letting go totally of such a relationship is the first step in moving on from a toxic relationship. You haven't allowed yourself to grieve. When grieving the loss of a relationship, we often assume that avoiding painful emotions will bring us relief, when the opposite is true. Doing so will often prolong the healing process. When you're ready, try to process your grief in whatever way feels most comfortable, whether that's through talking to trusted friends or a therapist. Most importantly, you must turn to God in your desperate hour of need, because Him alone can help you and take away the pains and suffering in your heart. You have to take time to grieve properly so you can let go of the hurt and pains in your life, and then you can focus on the next relationship God has for you. Number 4. You have experienced trauma and pain. A traumatic relationship can have a bad effect on you, and this makes it hard to move on after breaking up from one. It might affect you emotionally and psychologically, depending on the level of pain and hurt you go through in your previous relationship. This has made so many young men and women find it hard to move on from a previous relationship. It is then hard to give other people a chance. It can be difficult to move on if it's been a while since the breakup and you haven't met someone you click with. Perhaps you tried to date, but your heart wasn't in it because you weren't ready, or you are comparing everyone to your ex. It's difficult to make a genuine connection with someone else if you aren't fully open to it, and this might seem to be a result of what you faced in the previous relationship. It is, however, important that relationship expert or therapist you see helps you so you can let go of the hurt and bitterness you feel, and so it does not affect the overall view that all men or women are just like your toxic ex-partner. It is also possible that the trauma and pain you faced as a child might end up distorting your view concerning moving on. You're drawn to the same type of partner repeatedly, and your ex fell into that category. People often subconsciously try to heal what happened in the past by replicating the same dynamic they witnessed as children between their parents or caregivers, and holding on to the false hope that it will turn out differently this time around. This pattern is often repeated until the wound from the past is brought into conscious awareness and healed. For example, if one parent or both were absent from your life or emotionally unavailable, it's not uncommon to be drawn to the same type of partner repeatedly as an adult because it feels familiar. Number 5. When you keep a tab on your ex. Keeping a tab on your ex-partner either on social media or through text, or regularly calling them, shows you have not totally let go of the relationship, and hence it means you find it hard to move on. When you are still in contact with your ex, and you keep following them on social media, it can be a painful reminder of the relationship you once had, and it might give you high hopes that you could one day reconcile. This is okay if you and your ex-partner are willing to make things work in the relationship again. But a relationship that you both know is heading nowhere should not be rekindled in any way, and that means you should be ready to do away with such a partner, because contacting such a person is like reopening the wounds of the past, which therefore prolongs your healing process to move on. It is okay to cry. Breakups almost always hurt. Maybe you didn't see it coming, and the other person suddenly wants out. But there should be a period in time to let go, and allow yourself the freedom to let go of the pain and hurt. In conclusion, when you break up a relationship, you must get to evaluate and know why you broke up the relationship in the first place. You can then seek to understand why, especially if it is no fault of yours. The most important thing is knowing how you and your ex-partner feel about your past relationship, and knowing if the relationship is worth salvaging or letting go of such a relationship. This is the only way you can be assured that you are doing the right thing. It is also important you take time to heal properly before seeking a new relationship. And this can be done only through the help of God. Take your broken heart to Him, and He would heal and comfort you.